with Ryan Braun, and I'll tell you, my biggest problem with Ryan Braun is he on the players' team or is he not? And
Right.
it's a different thing because I get what he did.
Yep.
He jumped the gun thinking the Brewers aren't making the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, they're just not.
Right.
He's been semi-injured all year with some elbow issues and some leg issues. And what's this year? Who cares about the rest of this year? But he took a 65-game suspension, which I think is very impactful because under the collective bargaining agreement, first off, none of these offenses were committed or found is the word for me under the agreement that they had. No one
Right.
has a drug test that says
Right.
I'm guilty.
Right.
No one has a negative drug test. Ryan Braun being the first one here. Second, under the collective bargaining agreement, 50 games for a first-time offense.
Right.
He admitted or took a 65-game suspension.
Right.
I thought that was just, to me, that was very interesting. I mean, tell me your thoughts. I think some of the players might be really mad at Braun because he took more than a 50-game suspension, which obviously the rest of the players just took and for the most part let it go, and it sounds like A-Rod is the one that was over 50 games and he's the one going to fight it.
Right.
But what do you think? We all know what his motives are here.
Right.
His real money for his contract kicks in next year,
Right.
which he'll do. The Brewers have a chance, whatever they do, maybe they got a chance to make the playoffs. Didn't look like they were a playoff team this year.
No, they weren't. Not at all.
So, giving up the 65 games this year is kind of a throwaway for him. But is there something more to that? Because you enter this collective bargaining agreement and you say, here's the drug testing program.
Right.
He never tested positive under the collective bargaining agreement to a banned substance,
Right.
for starters. And secondly, even had he tested positive, he agreed to a sanction that was outside of the parameters of the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement. So, is he doing the players a real disservice by taking 65 games?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. You just blew my mind with that. That was great. That was
But
great.
isn't that right? I mean,
Yeah.
he jumped the gun. We've got 15 other guys that accepted their 50-game suspension.
Right.
Which I might understand that. I think from a purely procedural standpoint, I'm kind of against the whole thing. I mean,
Yeah.
Bud Selig comes out and acts like this is a terror and we got these guys and this is great. Well, let's dig into the facts of what's going on here. And the A-Rod thing is going to shed some light on it, so we'll talk about that. But what do they have on these guys?
Right.
They've got maybe some medical records from biogenesis. I would think on the front end, knowing a little bit of administrative law, if those are my medical records, I'm not turning those over.
No.
And I don't think that those are appropriate
Right.
in an administrative hearing.
Right.
Okay? So baseball should rely on what they agreed to with the players. Which, as a fan, I've got two problems here. Number one, they're attempting to use this guy from biogenesis to prove guilt of a violation. None of these guys have ever tested positive
Right.
for a banned substance. Now, Ryan Braun's little mishap or whatever aside,
Right.
none of these other guys that have taken the fall for this
Right.
have tested positive. So Major League Baseball agreed with the Players Association, which is, in my mind, we're back to square one.
Right.
Whatever testing's in place is clearly not catching what's going on. And I had somebody explain it to me once, the testosterone level that these guys play with. And it's a level that guys like you and I are just, it's 3 or 4 times what we do on a daily basis. It's crazy.
Right.
But I got a problem with that because clearly their testing isn't working.
Right.
So that's my first problem. Okay, Bud Selig wants to run around and act like, I'm going to squash these guys, I'm going to get this is a
Right.
big problem. the testing you agreed to didn't catch any of these people.
Right.
There is not a negative test in this whole group. So what are they going on? They're going on a word of a guy from Miami and some potential medical records. And, I mean, that's what they're dealing with?
Right.
I mean, tell me what you think about that, because there's no positive tests here.
Right.
I mean, this isn't like you got somebody in your course of testing, which makes me think, what are they testing? What?
Right. You actually told me a lot of stuff I hadn't heard. I'll be completely honest. The Ryan Braun thing, I really stopped listening to just because.
Who wouldn't get sick of this nonsense with baseball?
Right. Yeah. I heard about it. I've actually followed the A-Rod story a little more. Yeah, if they're all coming back negative, I've never understood. I mean, I've worked in many jobs. I was in the military. We did drug testing. I know people who got caught with, not, PEDs.
PEDs.
Yeah. Nothing like that. But every drug test I've ever known people who took, they all worked. I didn't know about none of the, them not actually finding anything on these people.
Well, I don't even really know what the testing parameters are for baseball.
Right.
I know the union is really strong, and I've heard a lot of things about the players now. We want to clean up the game and everything else, but I don't even really know what the testing is. Is it random testing?
Right.
Is it you test on a certain day? Is it this, that? I've had a lot of different things explained to me, but what I know is baseball players don't take steroids in the sense that bodybuilders do.
Right.
So you don't stick a needle in you for a cycle of 35, 40 days, and you do your steroid cycle.
Right.
What these guys do is they basically inject testosterone. So you and I run at, let's say we run at 150 is what we would test for testosterone, just to give an arbitrary number. Apparently baseball allows you to play in a 500 to 700 level.
Wow.
So you're at 3-4 times what the normal man would be.
Right.
Anyway, so these guys are at the 500 to 700 level. So if you test above 700, you have a positive drug test. So none of this makes sense to me. None of it is really even registering to me. If that's what it is,
right.
Just what are we really policing then? Because a guy that's doing a 690, which, we're talking arbitrary numbers, but if what they're doing is giving themselves testosterone, either you can do it or you can't. And I want to see some testing of if that's what they're going to say.
Right.
If they're going to say, okay, you can't do these drugs because the testosterone level will be so high, your body will be able to reproduce cells and you'll be able to heal faster, and which is what I understand they do more than, now McGuire got big, but that was, I think you can do those things on other drugs, but it's the testosterone level, which is what people have a problem with.
Right.
If that's what it's going to be, then in my mind, you shouldn't take anything that's going to boost your testosterone beyond an unreasonable limit. And if they're at 500 to 700,
right.
If that's what you're saying, then just let them do whatever they want. If that's what you're testing,
right.
If you're at 4 or 5 times what a normal man is, then you're clearly playing make believe. You and I aren't pumping testosterone, which I would assume makes you get up earlier, do whatever. A lot of speed does the same thing, which I know players took back in Hank Aaron's day and whatever.
Right.
In my mind, if that's what the thing is, then fuck, do whatever you want. We got to talk about A-Rod, I think.
Definitely.
And I know you got to the point, similar to Ryan Braun, that you just got so frustrated with the situation. And, this is a fun thing for me to hear from you, but it reminded me, and before we, get to the A-Rod technical part, there was a baseball strike in the 90s. There was I won't call it subpar baseball, but less than entertaining baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of fans said, I'm out.
Right.
I'm done, especially after the strike.
Right.
So a lot of fans said, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm over it, whatever. Sammy Sosa,
And
Mark McGwire started hitting all these home runs. Fans started coming back.
What was that, 98? I think it was 98.
It was either 98, 99.
Yeah.
That was 98 was the big home run year because I was in college and my brother went to school in Milwaukee. And I saw McGwire hit number 66
Nice.
at a game. But, you know, the fever swept. And
Oh, yeah. Big
they
time.
talk about how it saved baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And Bud Selig was the commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear a lot of points made, and we'll touch on A-Rod, maybe specifics just briefly, but I think for everybody to get so mad about it now and say, oh, we got to clean the game up and this is terrible, these are the same folks that had people like me and you saying, I'm done with baseball, I'm just not going to watch it. Like,
Right.
when you were a kid and I were a kid, we'd trade baseball cards.
Oh,
like,
my God.
let me give you this for that. We'd love baseball. And you might not see every game, but it was special when you got to watch a game on TV, right?
Oh, my God. Yeah, it was the entire world. Because I grew up in a little tiny town outside of Des Moines, actually, and you know, I had 3 channels. I mean, this was even before Fox was around, you know. And
Right.
so, the chances of me actually seeing a game, I didn't have ESPN, you know,
And ESPN didn't even really carry a lot of baseball games. And there wasn't ESPN2, there wasn't
right.
ESPN News. I mean, you'd catch baseball tonight, and that was a treat, you know,
Right.
because you'd get to see some other games. But, you know, you had your favorite players based on box scores in a newspaper.
Newspaper, exactly. That's exactly
And
what it
baseball cards. I mean, that's what you did, and you had a team. You had the Cubs, I had the Cardinals. Like, Ozzie Smith was my favorite player.
was. Right.
I didn't watch Ozzie Smith play till I was, you know, a little bit older as a kid. In the summer, my dad
Right.
would take me and my brothers down to watch a game, and
Right.
we'd sit up in the nosebleeds, you know, with binoculars looking down at the field.
Yep, I actually, as a kid, that's funny you bring up cards because every year for Christmas, my uncle would give me Topps, the complete edition of
set,
Topps.
yeah.
Yeah, so 756 cards or something like that. I could name 90% of every player on every team because of these cards. I mean, I would spend hours laying them out in the positions that they were, you know,
Right.
and who I thought should be, you know, the top player just by
And then where you bat them in the order.
just by the stats on the back of the card.
Right.
That's how I would determine who the best player was and everything. And then when I did, you know, randomly happen to get to watch a game or whatever, I knew all the players.
Right. You knew everybody and all
right.
the teams. So I always wonder, with all of this, how, quite frankly, disingenuous it is for everybody. The commissioner on down, because everybody knew what was going on with McGwire
Right.
and Sosa.
Right.
Or you were just stupid, or you're just caught up in everything and whatever. And as a big baseball fan, I loved it. I thought it was really fun. I never thought about it in a performance-enhancing standpoint.
Right.
Obviously, as I look back, of course, all of these guys were.
Right.
I mean, Brady Anderson isn't hitting 40 home runs just on
Right.
luck. Brett Boone playing second base isn't hitting 40 home runs just because he had a good year.
Right.
I mean, these are all-time years that these guys are having.
Right.
Everybody knew what was going on, and now to say we're mad about it, I think it's disingenuous. And,
Right.
and they made a bunch of rules because people love the home runs and everything else. So on one level, and we'll talk about A-Rod, I just think everybody's wrong
Yeah.
in this from my standpoint.
I could not agree more. And just for my personal 2 cents, I don't give a damn. I don't care. I mean, because of what you just said, we look back now and yeah, it's been going on for how long? I mean,
When everybody was taking something, so my question would be, Dustin, would you just say people want to take stuff,
yeah,
take
definitely,
stuff,
definitely. I
and
mean,
be done?
give them the option if you want to, because yeah, it will heal you faster. It will make you perform better. Yeah, I mean, would it be great if all sports were clean and this was just